AskReddit by Unland 2. What's an obvious sign someone's American? In Salzburg I went to grab something from the drugstore. As I was checking out I said hello to the cashier, thinking there was very little difference between how I said it and how Austrians say it. She immediately started speaking to me in English and I asked her how she knew I spoke English. She deadpan stared me in the eye and goes hello. I just about died laughing since I'm a very stereotypical friendly American that says hello exactly like that. One of my favorite memories from that trip. I definitely read your hello like Mrs. Doubtfire. An Italian told me that Americans walk confidently in the wrong direction. I had a boss who was an F-18 pilot. He said go as fast as you can if you think you're lost. You'll either get where you're going or find out you made a mistake sooner. They want ice in their water. Hi, American here. I have an addiction to chewing on ice. Hey, how are ya? Great. Thanks for asking. Deleted. The thing is, usually, it's more of a greeting as opposed to an actual question you are expected to answer. I worked as a cashier in a touristic place in Paris. I always recognized Americans because they were kinda friendly to me and they always left tips. I guess there are worse things than friendly and generous. Retail worker here, not living in the US. I can generally spot an American because they greet me with hey how are you, and since I usually have the standard tired from life retail worker expression at first I thought they were mocking me so I didn't know how to react. Took me a while to realize they weren't really expecting an answer mayo. Mind you, might just be my personal experience but it's happened too many times for it to be a coincidence. Not a coincidence, in the US we're basically trained to have these meaningless, pseudo-friendly interactions with retail workers. If we walk into a store, a worker will greet us and ask how we're doing. The only acceptable reply is, fine. How are you, and then we move on with shopping. If someone asks how far away something is, an American will tell how long it takes to get there as opposed to physical distance. This varies in America depending on if you live in a big city or not. If you live in the country, people usually use miles because of little traffic so the time is pretty constant. Where if you live downtown in a city, or even a bigger suburb, a 1-mile journey can take 5 minutes. 30 minutes, or an hour depending on the time of day, rush hour, accidents backing things up etc. The gentle grins you give to strangers if you make eye contact with them as you pass by, at least in the Midwest, was not well received in Germany. I dated a European man here in the US. When we walked together, every time I made eye contact with someone on our path I would smile at them, and they would always smile back. Boyfriend was so confused at all these strangers smiling at me. Kept asking if I knew all these people. It was hilarious. Eye contact. Maybe a smile and a how's it going? My dad always taught us to make eye contact when you meet someone, and the go-to line was how ya feelin'? How much personal space they give themselves. Americans like at least an arm length. We're conditioned to fill spaces evenly. I noticed when I worked delivery, spending lots of quality time on elevators that for every new person that enters, everybody shuffles to even things out. Similar thing plays out in social gatherings and bars. Not sure if that's universal or not, but I find it interesting. I think the size of our personal bubbles is because our spaces are generally much larger because we've got the space, to build bigger buildings, sidewalks, roads etc. Might also explain why we're louder. Used to filling larger spaces with volume. By contrast, I've noticed people from East Asia on the other end of the spectrum have seemingly, to me, no concept of personal space and have no problem entering my sacred bubble of personal space. I'd imagine it's just due to living in denser conditions. According to the SIR, when training to be a spy you have to unlearn how to lean. Americans tend to lean on things when standing still. Wow, that's an interesting point. I never thought about that. As an American, I was expecting to get roasted in these comments. But after reading them I can only laugh and agree. Laugh very loudly while leaning. Deleted. And New Yorkers are a different breed. Their regular talking voice absolutely booms over everything else. Makes sense when you have to be heard over the 1000 dB noise pollution. One American I've met was a bit stereotypical in some regards. He was on a biking tour from Sweden to Palestine, had an unusual beard, huge white teeth, was extremely friendly and a bit loud, and he literally carried a bucket of peanut butter with him because he said that was the most efficient way to carry energy for his travel. I was an intern at a software company that just got bought by a huge American company, Warner I think, and one time some executives were visiting, walked through our office complimenting all the developers loudly and then disappeared again. My general impression of Americans I've met in person is that it's difficult to see what you guys really think and feel, because you seem to hide it behind a layer of aggressive cheerfulness. So when I see someone radiating that, I expect them to be from the US. Aggressive cheerfulness is exactly it. Wow. They smile at strangers. Deleted. From what I've been told by European friends and travelers, our complete and utter lack of an indoor voice was in Geyser in Iceland, loads of people sitting in silence patiently waiting for it to go off. The anticipatory silence of waiting for a natural phenomenon to occur was broken by a loud American shouting blow, damn it. In my homestay in London, I was told that I was so American for enjoying a piece of cake for breakfast, not frosted cake, but like a nuts and dried fruit spiced coffee cake kind of thing. Apparently that's exclusively for like a 4 PM snack, and breakfast is more of a savory meal. That's true. A lot of American breakfast items in my mind are desserts, pancakes, muffins, waffles etc. Doesn't mean I won't eat them, but it's kinda weird to do so. German here. British man once told me he knew I was American because I was wearing a baseball cap backwards. An Italian told me they could tell I was American because I wore my sunglasses on the top of my head when I wasn't using them. The accent usually gives it away. What are y'all suppers and that means? While visiting Turkey I was told that I looked American because I was sitting with one leg across the other, and the bottom of my shoe was exposed. Apparently it's rude IDK. I'm literally sitting this way right now. Well, shit. Very amenable to socializing with strangers in settings like bars. Assertive, fair, curious, will get your back without knowing you too well. I've had positive experiences. Making sure you've got your homies' backs even if they're new homies is a big thing in our culture I guess. Tactical sunglasses. Sounds like my dad, he even has a dark platinum wedding ring that he describes as tactical. I don't know how true it is, but when I was in a hostel in Japan we met a guy from France I think. But in a ho at some point he mentioned he could tell we were from USA. He said it was because we talked loudly. Like our normal speaking volume was louder. And now I can't help but notice that sometimes when I speak to someone from a foreign country, I do feel like I talk louder than them. Full stop. An inordinate amount of small talk, unprompted. This is definitely dependent on where in America. Midwesterners love small talk, but other areas it's more frowned upon. I've noticed this as I've traveled myself from the Midwest and everyone seems peeved. I've always observed my us friends like to point at stuff while walking and say what it is. We were out walking around Amsterdam recently and they were like, hey look, it's a smoke shop. Oh look, a sex shop. Oh hey, it's a prostitute. Look at the canal. Wow, it's another prostitute. Another canal etc. It was like watching Netflix with audio descriptions turned on. Deleted. I rather enjoy wearing my baseball hat and eating and drinking on the go. Lol. A lot of Americans I met in the UK have been some of the most politest people ever. From all different states. Yes ma'am. I know somebody's gonna joke that's because they're disarmed while over here, but no, they've been so polite I at times wonder why things can't just sort themselves out over there. Also sentimental. Despite what is shown in the media, most Americans agree on the fundamental needs of America, but disagree on the means of servicing those needs. To be fair, I've said the Us or America to people in foreign countries asking where I'm from, and they always say yeah obviously, but where in the US? Exactly. I live in Spain and this is what happens to me 100% of the time. Y'all. Here's a really southern one. Wild diva. Walked into a bar in Australia. Ordered a beer and then the bartender noticed I'm American. I asked, was it the accent or my choice of Budweiser beer? He said, because they're the fattest fuck I have ever seen in my life, mate. Been laughing at this for 5 whole minutes. My wife is Brazilian with Italian heritage. She loves Americans and thinks we are unique. However, we have had the discussion about how we showcase indifference too much on what should have passion, and also how we focus on achievement over simply enjoying the passage of time. That to us time is focused on living to work, not working to live. How we focus on achievement over simply enjoying the passage of time. Only now, in my 50s, having this revelation. Dunno in all context, but Americans in Europe stand out with their ceaseless optimism and enthusiasm. I'm reminded a lot of Ted Lasso. Everyone I know, all Americans, loves the show. I wonder what kind of European fan base it has. Baseball cap. Guilty. When they say Europe and it could mean anything from Venice to Doncaster. I visited Europe last summer. As an American who has lived overseas, I could immediately pick out Americans in a crowd by how they pronounce the letter R. It's such a hard sound it sticks out like a sore thumb. I live down under and I'm always asked if I'm Irish. I'm American, and my working theory is because Irish also pronounce the letter R. They speak at a higher volume. When I lived in Europe, people said only Americans eat while walking. I'd be eating a bagel or something on the way to work or class and multiple people asked if I was American, lol. My partner's Italian mother absolutely couldn't get over the idea of seeing people walk around holding coffees, especially iced coffee. Long coffees instead of espresso is weird enough, but the idea of sitting at a cafe and not just finishing your coffee before you leave. Having a private conversation that everyone within 20 m can hear. 20 meters? That's like 21.872266 yards, right? I heard we smile everywhere we go like it's weird to be happy almost. There's literally a comment that said laughing in public. What kind of miserable world does everyone else live in? Athleisure clothing. I am ethnically Korean but grew up in the US. I visited Seoul in 2008, and I was at a crowded subway station waiting for a train. Suddenly, this white guy who was looking around with a confused look made a beeline right at me and then asked me for directions in plain English, as if somehow he knew that out of the 3 dozen or so Koreans at the station, I could understand him. At the time, I was dumbfounded, but looking back, it's pretty clear that my oversized shirt, gym shorts, and socks on sandals gave me away. So what I'm learning is my uncommunicative, resting bitch face, autistic ass would be unnoticed in Europe. Eastern Europe is where I found people that liked me for that stuff. Their communication skills tend to be above average, I have found. Well, at least in Australia when I meet them. They leave a tip. Extremely white bleached teeth. Someone asked if I was American in a group setting and someone spoke before me and said, of course, look at his teeth. Most Americans get braces, and I was like, well shit. 3 fingers vs 2 fingers 1 thumb. Fun fact. 2 fingers 1 thumb is how you say 3 in ASL, as the 3 fingers with thumb touching pinky is 4 6. Using MMDDIII. Well, hey, in 2 days everyone will agree for a day, until next month. I think they are generally friendly people, easy to talk to, accessible and welcoming. Would love to visit America. There is something quite old-fashioned about the type I am speaking about. Hospitable, warm, helpful. Come on over. Wearing shorts and a hoodie when it's less than 32 degrees Fahrenheit outside. I think that depends on where you come from. I'm from the warmer part of the US, and when it was in the 50s Fahrenheit, my mom expected me to put a jacket on. And a lot of other people wore them as well. Even in the 60s sometimes. Crew socks.